G'day YouTube. Warbles on a lot here. Oh, it's okay, it's okay. You haven't got to run away. You haven't got to run away. Oh, but you're going to. Okay, well, I guess we have got another swamp wallaby over there. That's feisty. And Fruitcake. Oh dear, dear, dear. She's a little bit sort of perturbed, you see, because I'm getting ready to make another movie about thumb nuts. Specifically, how to skin a thumb nut. Here we see the straight-winged thumb nut, which featured in yesterday's thumb nut construction part 3. It's been sanded, and I was just setting up, getting ready to put the skin of shininess on when the swamp wallabies came up and demanded biscuits. So, without too much further ado, I will show you the process, which is either going to work or I'm going to abandon and move on to marine spar varnish, which is slower and fiddlier, but, well, to be honest, just a little bit more reliable than the 2-part 5-minute epoxy procedure, which I'm going to try to demonstrate. While the swamp wallabies continue to munch their biscuits. As you can see, it's not a very high-tech set of equipment, but it should suffice. First, we squirt out just enough to do the job, and then into the seat and mix this stuff up. Now in theory it goes that milky white colour while you're mixing it. You mix it and you mix it and you mix it until it then goes clear. And now that it's clear, and it's probably about 10 or 12 degrees Celsius, it's just on the bottom limits of the temperature for this job working out. Because the epoxy is pretty thick. On the other hand, because it's cold, it shouldn't start going off too fast. I recently had about 4 days of trouble, 3 days anyway, where the epoxy seemed to be sort of pulling itself away from itself and forming vacuoles instead of a nice, smooth, shiny skin. Wood fibre there. And I finally tracked it down that what was going on was I had the freshly applied epoxy too close to the potbelly and its chimney inside the hut, and therefore it was overheating. Terrible shame if you get a hole, terrible shame if you get a bulge or a lump and you've only got a finite amount of time to sort the wrinkles out. Okay, what would the occupational health and safety people say to that? applying 2-part epoxy with a finger. So there you go. With the blessing of the swamp wallabies, we have a lady's sized straight thumb nut, number 11, and it is covered in 2-part epoxy shininess. The reason I'm drawn to the idea of using 2-part 5-minute epoxy to cover these things in shininess is because the wood is so terribly soft, and I just think a hard shell of epoxy on the outside not only brings up the grain, it makes the item more durable. And now that I've learnt the trick of moderate temperature curing to give the epoxy time to form a smooth skin, now I'm pretty happy with that. It's got one tiny little fleck of dust-sized imperfection there. But that's the other thing. There has to be some imperfections, otherwise people would think that it was machine made. The fact that it's not quite perfect nails down the fact that it's a handmade thumb nut. And cottage industry artisanal woodwork is really only worth anything if it is entirely handmade. Once you start going into mass production or 3D printery or vacuum stamps and moulds and extrusions, then you're trying to compete at making 15 of them for half a cent. And that is a game at which humans will lose every time. Warbles on a lot of YouTube. That's how to skin your thumb nut. Ciao.